thanks for joining everybody on this Saturday morning. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Back to business here. This is another opportunity that I'm kind of jumping in late into the year. And, this is just another opportunity that, we're trying to go into here that's, for hardworking middle-class folks like yourselves to build real asset portfolios by providing free education, investment, podcasting, and networking, and plus opportunities just like this one. So here's what we're going to be kind of talking today. Definitely, I think we'll get this done in the next hour or so. But the apartment complex we're going to be talking about today is Majors Place Apartment Homes, 176 units, 2008 built. So this is a brand new property in Greenville, Texas. So if you guys are at home and you Google that 2410 Jack Finley Boulevard, you're gonna find an empty lot there, and you think we're screwing with you guys. But it just got built a little while ago, and I think the Google Maps shows 2015's version there. You guys can read the confidentiality disclaimer later, but here it is. And here's some of the investment highlights, and we'll kind of dig at these into it later. So some of the big things that most people ask right up front is the investment split, and this would be a 80-20 split, and no acquisition fee. Usually you see about a 1.5 on this one. There is none. Minimal investment $50,000. We're taking accredited and non-accredited with a pre-existing relationship who are sophisticated. Investment term is going to be a little longer than what you're saying because it is a newer build, and projected annual cash and cash return 8.51 and projected 5-year total return 96.25, which is pretty much right in line with a lot of the other deals. So that's kind of why I jumped in. And you guys can, there's another disclaimer on the bottom of the page, which you folks can read later. The offering that we're going to be putting out again is 176 units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom floor plans located in Greenville, Texas, just north of Dallas. And we're going to be talking about this a few times, and hopefully you guys can ask questions on this. Yeah. This purchase includes an additional 12.9 acres of raw land, so multifamily. Let me meet some of you guys. If you guys can go to mute, hearing some background noise. So almost 13 acres of raw land, not included in our projected returns to investors. And introducing Kenny Wolf. You there, Kenny?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Yeah. So those of you who don't know Kenny Wolf, this is kind of the second project we've worked together on. We're in another deal in Oklahoma City. But he's been at this a while, and Kenny's one of those pretty good operators out there and kind of understanding that. But why don't you kind of share a little bit about your background, and then we'll get rolling through this.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been investing in multifamily for about 8 years now. We started out here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A few years ago, couldn't find much to buy, so we started looking outside. So we bought a property in Colorado Springs, and then Oklahoma City, and then Columbus, Ohio. We've also done a deal in Houston. We've done a deal in Louisiana as well. So we're up to 5 different states that we've been in multifamily. And then before that, I was in the oil and gas industry. Went to Baylor University and moved up to Dallas. Got started in oil and gas, and then moved to real estate, multifamily.
And that was several years ago, right? You quit the day job and then you started your
right. Yeah. So I've been doing this full time, probably 3 to 4 years now. I guess 3.5 years. So I've got a good office staff now. We've got an asset manager that helps me out, and then we've got an assistant as well. So.
Yeah, and you guys are still up north there. You guys moved locations recently, right?
Yeah, we're in the middle of a move right now. Actually, offices. We actually got a bigger office here in Plano. So.
Okay. So a lot of you Dallas investors, you ever want to stop in and just say hi? He's out there. I'm sure you guys get to know for the information. we'll get going through the property. I guess Kenny, do you want to kind of take this over, and I'll kind of monitor the chat. And if you guys have any questions, type it in the chat, and I'll chime in with stuff here and there.
Yeah, sure. So the property is it's in Greenville, Texas. It's right on I-30 and 380. Those are kind of major highways. The big um, the median income in that city in Greenville is 69,000 a year, which is pretty high for Dallas Fort Worth. Um, and I mentioned that because some of the folks were kind of wondering where Greenville, Texas was. So I figured get a little background on that. It's the home of a lot of there's three major um, defense contractors that have a lot of jobs there. So you get L3 Communications, you get Raytheon, and you've got some other ones that help service those major two um, right there. So the property is built in 2018. Sorry, Lane, you can go back. Um, built in 2018. Um, when we walked it, they were, I think, 100% pre-leased, maybe 95% physically occupied, and it's going to bounce around. But they've done the whole lease up part of it now. So bigger units for bigger average square foot units for a typical new build. So that's nice. Rent's pretty low at $1.07. I mean, we've got comps that are around the $1.15, $1.25 mark a square foot. So we feel like there's more room to push on the rents there. It's got covered parking and garages as well, which you can't see from this, but yeah, from this brand new bill.
Yeah, it's something funny, Kenny. I shot this out yesterday for the webinar, and then one of the investors mentioned that their daughter's friends live in this thing.
It's a small world.
But that's exactly who it's for, right? It's for like the younger folks, kind of
Right.
who can't really afford to come into the big city, and yeah,
Right, and it's got all the great the interiors. I'm sure we'll get there, but they've got granite countertops, washer dryer hookups in each unit, um, brand new appliances, the faux wood plank flooring in the property. So it's a beautiful property on the interiors as well.
yeah. And for those of you who are kind of looking at that average rent per square foot, I think if Dallas, you probably know this a lot better than I do, Kenny. But a lot of the other Class C areas, we're buying it at like 80 cents, 90 cents a square foot, and just getting it right under that dollar threshold. So
Yeah, well, so we've got a property in Wiley, Texas, which is northeast of Plano here. So it's not in. I mean, it's in the Dallas Fort Worth metroplex, but it's a B property. It was built in '82, and we're getting $4 to $7 rents on that property, and that's without washer dryer hookups.
right. And I think some of the investors on the call are probably scratching their head. It's like, okay, we beat the drum all the time on this Class B and C stuff. Where the heck does this Class A thing come from? Maybe you can kind of tell the story, and then are the returns there?
Right. So typically these brand new Class A deals go to institutional buyers. They don't typically go to folks like us. We got a phone call from a broker. This deal was softly marketed to a few folks. Was actually under LOI with the institutional buyer, and we were able to convince the seller to come over to us. We were able to get higher leverage on this deal. So it's about an 82% leverage on the property. So that let us that allows for us to make the returns that we typically see on our B and C class stuff. So about 8.5, 8.6 average cash on cash, and then 95% total return. The reason why we're able to get that higher leverage is because we can stack a second loan on top of a Fannie Mae loan. Both are non-recourse. Both are long term. The second loan is a 0% interest loan, um, amortized over 30 years, but called in 15 years. The Fannie Mae loan, we're going to go with a 10-year loan, um, and it's obviously a non-recourse loan as well. We actually got 15.4 million on the proceeds on that, and we got it 4 years of interest only, which weren't really in our numbers on the projected returns.
Yeah, I think the
And then
projection for 3 years IO, right?
Yeah, so we got a fourth year, and then we've got about 200K higher in um, loan proceeds than we were initially told by Fannie. So that, and then the really cool thing is that so we're getting this brand new property, we're getting B and C class returns, that you typically see, but on top of that, we've got that 12.9 acres of raw land that's zoned multifamily already, basically for free. I mean, in my mind, that's how I'm thinking of it. We're getting this almost 13 acres for free. The 176 units that what we're buying is sits on 12.1 acres. So, assuming we can get get another 176 or higher, it's going to be a great deal for the group.
All right. And we'll kind of go into those lending terms a little later, just in case you
Yeah,
missed that. So as you can see, this is a Class A asset. It's you know, very nice. The office on the right side, and then you've got your normal amenities such as gym, the pool. There's even one of those really cool sky courts that are like the basketball courts with that permeable surface.
right.
It's in here.
So for one of the reasons we're able to get this second loan on here was because the builder, and we're assuming it from him. 20% of the units are capped on rent by 50% of the area median income. So that's a lot of information. So let's unpack that. So 20% of the units are kept on rent. Um, the rent caps are still pretty high per square foot because the median income, like I mentioned before, was 69,000 in Greenville. Um, so that's what they base that cap on. So even on the cap rates, it's still pretty good rent on there. But that's the reason we're able to get that second loan.
So this is the builder goes out, he gets a loan to go and build, but a lot of times, there are different programs out there, and this is the Texas Housing Authority, right?
Right. Yep.
So this is kind of the stipulations that he gets. But one of the good things is that great loan, that 15-year loan that we'll talk about later, that we're assuming also.
Right.
But whenever you take a handout from the government, there's string attached to it. So
Yeah.
I've been working for the government for the last 5 years, so I know this very well. So this is just the stipulations, and it's all been underwritten into the deal. You'll see some of these like the lower rents. They don't wear off to what, like 20 years from now. Like it's usually a long term, right?
I think it's 25 years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes you'll see some of these older deals, and the broker would kind of be pushing it that, hey, the AMI restrictions will be wearing off in the next year or two. You don't really play in those types of deals, have you?
No, we haven't. I'd love to buy one that's probably 2 to 3 years, but till the end of that, just sit on it, and then you can go to market rent. But that depends also too what percentage. I mean, we see a lot of those with the Luros on them, with like 40, 50% or higher of the units that are capped. So
So you hear a lot bigger floor plans than what you're kind of accustomed to.
right, yeah, yeah, they build them pretty big.
So I think this is kind of where the rubber meets the road, and this is kind of the base of a lot of the assumptions through the numbers that we'll get into. Uh, Currently, they're going in here and pre-leasing all these things, and it takes a while for them to pre-lease this thing, right? Because it's kind of a ghost town initially.
It can. I mean, they filled it up in, I think, in like 6 months or so. I mean, it was pretty quick. I think 6 to 9 months when they got them on, they leased up pretty fast.
Yeah, I was touring a property just like this in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which I consider a lot more of a tertiary market than this one. I think we're definitely going to get a lot of that urban sprawl from Dallas
Right.
creeping up to Greenville, since it is a commutable drive. But yeah, it's kind of funny. And it was only like 50% occupied, and they're still trying to get new people, and it just takes time. But
It
you know,
can.
we're buying it with 100% pre-leased here, so we don't have to worry about that.
Right. Yep.
Average rents 1050, and then the comps are, like we said, a little bit higher. clubhouse, playground, business center, fitness center, and then there's that sport court down there.
Right.
If someone's got their TV on in the background, please go to mute.
Got a nice playground there.
All right. Kenny, why don't you go through the timeline while I kind of mute everybody here?
Sure. So the strategy for this property, it's a brand new property, so there's really not a lot for us to do to it. Obviously, we'll be closing on this around the first week of December. That's what it's looking like. We are going to test a few upgrade units. They didn't do a backsplash, which is kind of a signature thing we do. We'll do some other small kind of upgrades to the unit, but mostly it's the backsplash. We'll probably try out some stainless steel appliances on about probably 5 to 10 of them. See if those, see if we can get an extra $100 for those units. We didn't put those our into our projections. So that's something we're just going to try to see if we can do it. And obviously just continue the stable operations. And then the next, 6 to 12 months, if we're able to, if the market's, the market's willing to pay more for those upgrade units, then we'll continue doing those. Then you'll see continued stable operations all the way through. I mean, that's the name of the game, is just to keep it leased. And then past month 30, I'm thinking it's going to be more like year 5, but maybe year 3. Depends on obviously the market timing and all that. But we're going to start looking to build units on that 12.9 acres of land. But it's all going to be market based. We could start the day after close if we wanted to, but I think we want to test the market and see if it can take another 180 units of multifamily.
So can we get a question here? In the first couple years, what units are we planning to upgrade first? Is there a thought there, or is it just test
Well,
test what comes up?
yeah. So what we do is usually try a 1, 2, and a 3 bedroom, with our kitchen upgrades, and see which ones stick. We do at least one unit of each, and then if we get once we lease the first, say, 1 bedroom at $100 more, well then we're going to do 2 or 3 more, and then once we have those 2 or 3 that are leased up and we feel comfortable, we can kind of roll it out in a much bigger way than we go that route.
Yeah, and can you correct me in my exact numbers here? But I think we're doing what 2 to 3 thousand of rehab per unit, but that's a little misleading.
Yeah.
Majority of that's going to be exterior improvements, not really going to the interior. But maybe break that down a little bit for us. How
Right,
we
and
can.
it's really too much. I mean, that we put in there 3K, a door for rehab, but it's a brand new build, so there's really not much for us to do, even on the exterior. Really, the only thing I think they're missing is a dog park, and kind of a barbecue pit pergola area. We usually put those on our properties, so we'll do that. There's one space at the front of the property where we can do that. And then we'll test the upgrade units as well. Those are only going to cost us about 2K a door, on the interior, because the appliance will cost us about 1250 backsplash, between $200 to $400 there, maybe some fans and stuff. But it'll come in right around probably 2K a door on those. We have some extra fluff in there for sure, just to make sure we got everything covered. Um, Really, I mean, there's really not much to do on the outside. We're going to improve some of the drainage. One of the buildings, they added some, um, what do you call those? I guess kind of overhangs over a few of the hallways, so that way the water's diverted. So we'll continue that project on the buildings that have issues with that.
And so let's talk about this raw land idea here. Maybe more in depth. I mean, year 3 to year 5, somewhere, depending on market conditions. Would we engage like a builder? What's kind of some of the options there?
So I mean, I see two different scenarios, and I got get a little background about us. So I'm actually working on my first development project right now. We've broken ground. We should have the townhomes built by April or May of next year. So we kind of have our feet wet with the development piece. Gone through working with the city, had to replat those that land that we have that we're developing on in Wiley. Worked with the architects, all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that we typically don't buy, or, have a lot of uh, experience with buying existing buildings. And we did that small development project to kind of get our feet, get our company's feet wet and understand, what the process is on those. So, scenario one would be where investors today, are obviously they're going to have ownership in that raw land from day one. Whenever after we close this, and they've obviously signed up, whatever, they'll have ownership in the raw land from here to the end of the project. So what we'll do is it's going to take us about $3 to $4 million. So let's say 3.5 million to build the other 180 units or so. So what we'll do is we'll go back. So everybody has their own ownership in the land right now, and we'll get a valuation of the land when it's time to build. And we'll need that not just for ourselves, but for the bank too, because it's going to lend us probably 75% of the build cost. But part of that, part of our 25% is going to be the value of the land as well. So we'll have to get that valuation of the land. Investors know their investment in the new units because based off the raw land piece, and then we'll go back with the current investors will have their first right of refusal to put more money in for the new units. If they do not, that's okay. They're still going to have ownership in the units. They just won't have more ownership in those brand new units. So, and then we'll for those for any money that we can't raise within just our group, we'll go outside, get investors, but they will only have ownership of the new units, not the existing units that we're buying today or here in a few weeks. So that's that's one scenario that's going to net us the most return on our money if we do it that way. The other way I've seen it is um, existing landowners team up with a developer, like Lincoln Property Group or someone like that, and they come in. So our piece of the ownership of the new units would be the land of the value or the value of the land, and then the developer would cough up the rest of the equity, and we'd get our ownership that way. So that's the two different scenarios I see. I'd like to do scenario one. Um, we've got we've got the all the connections we need to build a quality asset up there. So I don't see why we'd go to scenario two, but I kind of throw that out there for folks to see the different ways we could do it.
Yeah, scenario two would be sort of building competition around us. We would,
Well, that's true. Yeah.
yeah. And for those who went with us on the Lake Charles assisted living deal recently, that's pretty much the same concept in phase one. This would be sort of like the phase one, and then the phase two would be that secondary build out. And I just did a little calculation here. If you take the 13 acres and you times it by, you know, convert it to square foot, that's like about a half a million square feet. At what, $5 a square foot is it? Right
Right.
in ballpark. You're looking at $2.8 million value on the land. And we could probably argue back and forth higher or lower on that price, but just for order of magnitudes, $2 to $3 million is what that land is that we're not factoring into this. So, you know that that's if you just sold the land off
Right.
into the next deal. So that's kind of how we kind of come up with that idea that it's sort of like a 40% ROI right off the bat.
Yeah. Just on the land. Yeah.
So again, purchase price is pretty huge on this thing. That's why it seems like it seems like a big number, but it really is a smaller part of this whole thing. Purchase price per unit, 123,000. We've got the rehab costs in there. Again, the $3,000 per unit is mostly exterior improvements, and that's where total equity there 4.1 million, and that land is not included in there. But again, that was another 2 to 3 million on top of that.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of throwing off that price per unit number. It looks really high, but if when you take into consideration that we could build another probably 180 units, right next to it, then that's obviously going to distort that purchase price per unit number.
Right, right. But for regular single family home investors, I mean, you're right at that 1% rent to value ratio.
Right,
It's on a brand new turnkey rental in a way, except 176 of them.
right.
So here's the financial summary: 5-year average cash flow of 8.51. Um, what's your thoughts on what do we want to tell folks on like cash? When is cash flow starting on this one since it is A class getting going?
So I mean, it's already leased up. So I would assume and the deal like this, I think it'll be 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Probably sooner than like your average class C and B.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this one's already kind of humming, so it's pretty. It'll be cash flowing from day one.
Yeah, and is that gonna be like the Fannie Mae requirements? Those guys are gonna hold us up if anything.
Fannie Mae wouldn't hold us up on the cash flow. No.
Yeah. Hey, Gary, did you have a question?
Sure. Usually gonna be on this main channel, probably later.
I'll meet you. 5-year total return 96.25%. Again, the loan term 10 years, possibly 12. We haven't got the
It's not the
12
pin.
year, have we?
No, I think we're gonna go with the 10. I think it's a better deal for us to go with 10 years.
Management has been engaged, and in fact, this is kind of one of the reasons why I work with Kenny because he just recently acquired a management company in house, and so that's kind of the next step for a lot of these operators stepping up and getting that all that in house instead of going with a third party provider.
Yep.
We're still trying to close this thing in December 2018. So personally, that's what I'm really like to see happen because I want to get some deductions in 2018. I talked to a CPA and lawyer on this one, and they told me that as long as we close in 2018, the cost segregation study for the bonus depreciation can come to in 2019. But we just have to
Right.
close this thing in 2018, which we're
Okay.
on track to
Oh, we're
do.
gonna close it.
We're gonna close it. Assumptions: 2% rent increases, expenses increases. So none of this 3-4% rent increases. Entrance cap. You want to talk about a little bit about this? What the assumptions and how we came up with these numbers? Entrance cap today is 5.5, and the exit cap 6.5 or 6.
Right. Yeah. So we did. Just to be conservative on our numbers. I assumed that we could just get a 6% cap rate on the exit. I mean, that's not today. These today B and C class are going for between 5.5 to 6.5 cap rates here in Dallas Fort Worth. So I think that's very conservative, but especially once we build those other units, and it's going to be a big enough property for a institutional buyer to come in and pay a lower cap rate.
Yeah, and I usually tell investors that you want to look for an entrance cap rate to exit cap rate delta of 1%. But remember, this is an A class property, and this isn't like an A class property built in 1990s, 2000s. This thing was
Right.
built in 2018. So that's why we're using a little bit different rule of thumb here. Um, you want to kind of go over the loan terms here, Kenny?
Yeah, sure. They're a little they're lower, which is good, right? That always helps our return. So we actually got the Fannie Mae approved us for 15.4 million, 4 years interest only on the first lien. The second is actually 2.9 million as well. We there was a um, there was a I don't want to call it a mistake, but there was an error in the numbers. So 2.9 million. So we actually are getting higher leverage on both loans. The second loan is that TDHCA loan, which is a 0% interest rate. So it's straight. The payments are just straight principal. So the equity buildup in this property is going to be pretty quick over the first 3-4 years because of that second loan on there. The loan term, we're going to do 10 years on the Fannie Mae. The second loan, that TDHCA loan, is a 15-year, well, I guess 14-year term right now, but amortized over 30 years. Interest rate, we're seeing below 5% on the Fannie Mae loan at 4.82. Down payment 3.6 million. That's actually going to be on the high. That's high because of the, like I mentioned above, the loan amounts above are lower. Closing costs, again, I like to be conservative, so I've had the numbers on there. I like to keep working capital at 150 on a property this size as well. You'll see the principal's balance there. Principal paid is at 85K a year for the first 3 years, because that's solely that second lien, that TDHCA loan. And then you've got your interest. Year 4, which is actually should be year 5 because we got 4 years of interest only. You'll see the principal pops up to the 312 mark.
Yeah. So, well, all the projections that we're kind of saying it'll likely be a little bit better, especially on the cash flow side, because at 4 years interest only, and we're not at this point we're not going to change the documents going out since we already
Right.
had most of the investors in this deal already. So, um, yeah, when we do our documents, we have to kind of set it and keep it that way. So most times, luckily, if you do your numbers right, you can get lucky like this, and it gets a little bit better.
Lucky. I don't know about lucky. It's good. It's good. um, so yeah, so here's our 5-year cash flow model. Walks you through the total rental income. It just slowly grows. That 2% expenses, again 2% replacement reserves. Actually got a better number than that, 35,000. It was like 179 per unit per year, so that's an extra, I think, 10 to 15K off that replacement reserve number. Got our debt service, asset management fee, sponsor comp, and so then that's the cash flow. So but again, in year 4, it's got the asterisk, but that's really another year of interest only as well, which is not shown on year 4 there. It should be year 5.
Yeah, and in this deal, there is a 1.5% asset management fee off the top, pretty standard. Um, so that comes off, and then the 80/20 splits come off after that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
again, like Kenny said, replace the sort of put year 5 into year 4 because at 4 years interest only. If you're kind of following the numbers here later on.
Right.
But
And
a
then
lot of
just
people,
kind of,
a lot of
oh, go
people
ahead.
just they don't care, right? They're like, okay, well, just if I put in 100 grand, tell me what happens. So
Yeah.
here it is. um,
Right.
Cash flows looking like 8.8% their first year. It's going to take a little bit time to get a few months to get out the gate. So likely you'll miss your first quarter distributions, but then it'll start to pick up, and looks like we'll be humming along a little higher than that. And here at year 3, you're going to hit almost 10%, but then it's going to trail off year 5. Year 3 will probably be about maybe even 11%. I'm guessing. Who
Yeah,
knows?
probably because of the lower amount that we need to close.
Right, right, and that's why the cash flow drops off from like probably about 11 in year 4 to about that 6 or 7 in year 5, because that interest only is kind of juicing that.
Right.
But then it's sort of hidden, but that equity really jumps off once you start paying off your principal.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty huge. Yeah.
Again, 80/20 GPLP split, no acquisition fee, and none of this includes that 12.9 acres of raw land, which makes this deal pretty unique, uh, in my opinion. We'll go over the Greenville, Texas median monthly rent 765, medium house value 150,000 about, and the median household income, which I think is probably the most important stat here. It's pretty decent, 66,000 median household income.
Right. There's a lot of engineers that work and live in and around Greenville because of those big employers.
Yeah. The population 26,000. A lot of people coming driving in and out, right? Want to live in a small town, but work are able to work in a bigger city like Dallas.
Right.
Job growth. The last data we got is 2015-16, and 4.52% their growth. Again, we're modeling this deal just for 2% rent increases.
Right.
L3 is probably the big company out there, and what's the rumor that Air Force One is made here or
It
something?
was so it's not made there, but it's they service the Air Force One there in Greenville and have for decades apparently.
Is there like a little airfield that they just fly it into secretly?
Yeah, I guess yeah, a secret airfield. Yeah.
Different attractions in the area, and it's right on that this Interstate 30. You can see it going through town, and that's what comes right into Dallas. And if you guys don't
Yeah.
know Dallas very well, Dallas, you kind of want to be on that northern end. That's where all the big expansion. That's where all the nice fancy houses are coming out to.
Right, and you also got 380 there too. You see it coming in from the west. That's a big development piece too. It's it's definitely growing out that way for both along I-30 and 380.
We've got That's kind of the end of the presentation. We'll call in these frequently asked questions, and then if you guys want to start typing questions in into the chat window, please do so. If you guys want to um, ask a question live and just hear yourself on the webinar forever, let me know. So, first question here, Kenny: what kind of loan will be obtained to purchase the property?
So we've got two actually. So we've got the TDHCA loan which you talked about. It's really 14 years remaining because they started paying on that. So, but it's 0% interest rate, so just principal only, amortized over 30 years. We'll also obtain a Fannie Mae loan with a 10-year term, amortized over 30 years.
And that the TDHCA is that loan that incentivizes the builders to build this stuff. So
Right.
that's what that is. Purchase price and appraisal. Do you know when that appraisal is coming out?
Yeah, I actually saw it on Friday. I think it was Friday or was it Wednesday. Anyways, it's the Thanksgiving holiday, so anyways, we'll know. Who knows? But I saw this week the appraisal was 21.9 million, but they did not include the land in that appraisal, which was so they're having to scramble to get that in there. But so just the existing units got the 21.9 million appraisal.
If you've got the price you want, do you need to go get the land for the appraisal for the land?
Yeah, we have to because it's going to be collateral in the Fannie Mae loan. So to make Fannie Mae happy, we have to put it on there.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. And this is like the whole when things go wrong, they want to check out debt covenants, right, to make sure
Right.
you're
Yeah.
properly
That and then
capitalized.
and because the purchase sales agreement talks about the existing units and the land, so we have to put that in the appraisal.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
So yeah, we'll probably. Do you know when that's going to be coming out? That'd be kind of interesting to see what that.
I don't know when they're going to. I know they're supposed to get that done the next week or so, but to add the land of value on there. But I was excited to see the 21.9 without it on there.
Cool. Let's catch up on some of these live questions here. Uh, Roger asks, would a developer sell a brand new building, or why would a developer sell a brand new building?
They do. They're not in the business of keeping and operating these existing buildings. So especially the one that we're buying it from, their business model is to buy the land, build it, lease it up, and sell it. That's what they do.
Yeah. Was it a big national developer, or was it kind of a smaller group?
It's a group out of Dallas, and they're pretty big, but they're not like a national developer. That they focus on Dallas Fort Worth. Uh, but that's their mo is to build, lease, and sell.
Yeah. And John asks, what percent of the units remain AMI? I think it was for 20 years. Does Are we including that to increase in the projections?
No, I mean, well, on the capped rents, we kept them capped in our underwriting. Is that the
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, and I think that was covered in the one of the first slides. We kind of had a price per square foot on the AMI units, which is I think about 20%, 20
Yeah, that's
25.
20% of the units that are capped on the 50% of the area median income.
Yeah. So on our underwriting, it's kind of just a simple exercise. Just break out those AMI units, keep them the same, and model on the 80% of the units at that higher rate.
Right.
Um, how is this different from the Lura or Lurk stuff?
So Luras are longer. They're typically like 45 to 50 years. Those feel like they never burn off. This one's a little shorter, and the only other difference would be that it's a Texas um, housing thing and not a federal housing. Um,
Yeah, and I think the Lura and Lurk is just Lurk is kind of a creepy name to it to begin with. That's how I was asking Kenny like if he does that because normally those are the deals that get hawked to sucker buyers because they are 50-year-old properties and they're usually in the worst areas and you just can't reposition the dang thing because it's majority of it is AMI and
right,
it's transitioned into sort of Section 8 housing. Um,
right,
this will get there most likely in 50 to 100 years, but we're not going to stay for that long.
right.
Next question I gotta pull up. Let's say you decide to build a second apartment building on the 13 acres of vacant land. If the initial investor in this deal does not decide to invest in the building and the second apartment building, does the investor still own a portion of the second building because they still own a portion of the land? So
Yes.
maybe I'll take a stab at this. And so you own the land, and just with a quick calculation here, supposedly it's worth about $2 to $3 million, somewhere on that magnitude. So what that is now, you're sort of putting that's sort of our buy-in into that deal, which can be either sold off and cashed, and then it'll just be just another distribution, or it can be sort of as equity. What's your thoughts there on putting the equity into the next deal, Kenny?
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I'm going to re up and buy more shares of the new offering to do more of the new units. But yeah, the folks that are investing today will have their ownership um, in the new units as well, based off the valuation of the land at that time when we build it. So if they own 10% of this deal today, and just to make it easy math, they own 10% of the existing units in the raw land today. The raw land is going to be that equity piece in part of the development. So they will own 10% of the land value going into the new units
Right. And here's
without having.
another follow-up question. Does the planned distribution of the existing property at year 10 depend upon the building of the second apartment building?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, an attractive deal for somebody. If for some reason we don't build the units, we can sell it to somebody who would want to, I guess. But I don't think it's. I think it'll look much better if we sell them both together, though,
Right. The
because they're not
package it all up to institutional investor, you get an even better price.
right.
Um, I mean, I would call this like a legacy hold. What's the definition of legacy? Who the heck knows? I mean, in my head, I'm thinking like this is going to be a 7 to maybe 15-year hold. I mean, what's your
It could be longer. I mean, or it could be. It's a deal where we vote on that. In our documents, you'll see we vote on those bigger questions like that. So once we build the units, we'll get a BOV, so broker opinion of value, a few of those for some folks, and see what we can sell the whole package for. Uh, um, if we can, if it's a big enough number, maybe we just sell it and move on. Or if we like it, then we just do a cash out refi on the whole thing, pull our equity out, and just coupon clip it for another 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. And the lawyer on this one is Gene Trowbridge. They're
Right.
pretty much I'd say they're one of the top, if not the top, syndication attorneys out there. Kenny, do you know what the mechanism for the voting structure is for this one? Since it in this type of deal, it's more of a, I guess, a controversy, I guess, what we do. So just
So we would I need to look, but usually we do 75% of the Class A shares um, to make major decisions.
okay. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't want to go into the next deal. I mean, unless you really need your cash.
Yeah, I guess that's another option too. If you didn't want to, if you want, yeah, and there's ways in our documents if you want it out of the property, out of the investment, you do have to hold them for 12 months. That's an SEC rule. But after that, there's ways to sell your shares. That's it's all drawn out there in the company agreement.
Right, right. But please, if you think you want out in less than 4 to 5, please don't invest.
Yes, I agree.
Um, okay, so another question here. Even though it's a new build, how would you rate the quality and construction of the complex in terms of the major structural components? Do you expect any surprises a year down the road? Bad roof, improper window installation, waterproofing. Maybe talk a little about the foundation adjustment. Comment on the slide. Um, yeah, so you went and did your due diligence, and you got your inspectors out there. Maybe kind of talk a little bit about what they found.
Yeah, I mean, they found like $1,200 worth of plumbing. They're one of the and I think actually have already fixed it. They're supposed to have already fixed it. So the seller, but they didn't. One of the underground pipes wasn't connected properly. So we found that. But again, it's like a $1,200 fix that they already did. The roofs were in great shape. Obviously, brand new. We didn't see any obviously roof leaks or anything like that. We did a unit by unit inspection of the whole thing. There's one building that's had a little bit of movement, but it's within the engineer's specs. So we had a structural engineer check it out, and it's within that range. So I think that's fine. We're all comfortable with that. And if you're not from North Texas, it's not. Our soil moves a lot, so it's kind of a something we live with out here. Um, so that is the only kind of other thing that we'll be watching is that building to make sure. But again, it fell within the range of the structural engineer, the national structural engineer guidelines.
Yeah, and I think that slumping is people get more freaked out than it is. I mean, just hire a pretty dang good engineer, such as myself. No, just I don't know that stuff. But I mean, they do this all the time. There's
Right.
outfits out there that I think you just got to catch it before it kind of damages the structure.
Yeah, and in multifamily, it's not so much of a big deal. Like in single family, it's tough to get a loan. It's tough to sell the property if you have foundation issues. And multifamily, if anybody doesn't care about that, as long as you can rent it out to somebody, then they don't really care about that themselves. Obviously, we do as property owners, but there's really no, it's not as bad of a stigma in multifamily as it is in single family.
And then coming back to the frequently asked questions on this page, is this an all bills paid property? Answer is no. Residents pay their own electricity, and other utilities are billed back to the residents. So no, not really any rubs here, opportunity. But what I was talking about, Kenny, is like maybe we can do the trash pickup, since even B+ assets are doing that these days for extra revenue.
Right. Yeah. There's ways we can definitely get more revenue out of this thing. We didn't really, but we didn't want to put that in our numbers just because it hasn't been proven up yet. But yeah, there's the trash valet. There's other ways we can um, boost the other income as well.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different from what we're used to in Class B and C, but I think a lot of us haven't lived. A lot of us investors who are living in cool Class A single family houses don't realize this, but like all these Class A properties, they're a lot of the rent, maybe about 10-20% of the rent of the income is coming from other income sources like trash valet, or if you want internet, or if you want this other service, or um,
Pet rent.
yeah, yeah, other things. I mean, maybe if you have a son and daughter living in one of these things, you guys know, but just kind of sort of a nuance of Class A.
Right.
How much are the closing costs? Closing costs are there. How will profits be split? Again, it's a 80-20 split with 80% going out to you guys, the LP investors. That's after the sort of standard 1.5 asset management fee. Again, no acquisition fee, which is typical of most deals. In fact, the acquisition fee is a lot bigger than the asset management fee because usually the asset
Right.
management fee is just on the income, whereas the acquisition fee is on the asset.
Right. So we typically structure our deals. We've always structured them this way, is that they're it's all based off the performance of the property. So an acquisition fee typically is not based on performance. That's just buying the asset. Ours are all based off of how well the property performs
Yeah,
after close.
but that might be changing, right? Since you guys got a new office and got,
No, we're probably gonna keep it this way. I like it this way. It's better for the passive investors.
what will the rehab cover? Again, that not too much interior upgrades other than the backsplash and mostly that dog park, pergola, and barbecue pit will be the exterior improvements that we mentioned earlier.
Right.
Management fees, asset management fee is 1.5%, as we just said. How is the plumbing on the property? Checked out, great. New asset. I think we mentioned that earlier. 2100
Right.
repair.
Yeah.
Roofs are brand new roof. What kind of roofs are these things?
They're pitched, and they're the oh my gosh, it's escaped me. There's obviously shingles. The anyways, uh, so they're shingled. The only touch up we had to do is that they didn't they didn't do the there was a handful of, and it was on one building, so I guess they just got the wrong guy for that job. But it was the vents that weren't quite sealed up enough, and might be a problem. So they're going back and fixing those.
And then what's the HVAC system like?
So they're all individual HVAC.
Okay. So even on A class, that's just the best practice. I mean,
I much prefer that. Even on my older stuff, I much prefer that. I'd rather change out a $2,000 AC than an $80,000
right,
chiller
chiller
system.
unit, yeah. Uh, how frequently will performance documents be supplied to investors?
So we do monthly updates. So I'll usually what I do is, and I think Lynn's going to obviously be in part of that process, but we write a big monthly email up and to everybody, send that out. Attached to that is a PDF with about this property probably going to be more about the 100-page mark, but we include the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, general ledger. You've got the box score, rent rolls. I mean, it's a lot of information. I like to make sure everybody knows what's going on. And then we also copied the bank statements with the check copies as well on there. So we like I appreciate full disclosure. Things that I invest in. So we do the same thing here.
With such a high occupancy in the market, what is the anticipated build of the new apartment buildings in the area? How does new development looking coming online there?
So these units are the newest since 2003. So these are the newest units in Greenville for the past 15 years is what they was what we were what we saw. Um, it really depends on. I mean, if DFW continues to grow at the pace it is, then we could be building these in 3 years. I've been telling people 5 just to give us some wiggle room in case it slows down. I don't see uh, any slowdown. I actually got a call from a guy that's in Salina, which is, I mean, way north. It's almost Oklahoma City, and he wants to build on 6 acres up there. So it's right now. Everything points to that we continue to grow and keep on building.
All right, and just sort of like on a high level discussion, you probably could go back and forth on a beer like over on this discussion is going into a recession, we all know a recession's coming up. Do you want to be holding on to a Class C asset that you have the ability to catch people as they come down from the A's and the B's, or would you rather be holding a much better asset like this one, brand new build, in fact, going into recession? And we all know Class A, the rents will be hurt, right? Just like how you're seeing in Seattle right now, San Francisco, and Chicago. A lot of the luxury apartments, I would say much nicer than this, like the 1600 range and more. Their rents are coming down $100, $150 across the board on that high end stuff. But in a recession, that this stuff will come down. I mean, I think we're adequately projecting the rent increases, and we've got enough buffer in here. I don't know if you know the the crossover point on the sensitivity analysis when we start losing money off the top of your head, but it's kind of a controversy. I don't know where you're at. I don't know which is better. That's why I want a little bit of both. That's why I'm going into the deal.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, our B class in Wiley, Texas, which is which is a little bit more built out than Greenville, but it's still pretty. It's 20. I think that Wiley is 28 miles from downtown Dallas. But we're at a $1.07 or $1.10 a square foot on a B class, and that's without any washer dryer hookups. So we're about the same price per square foot with with no granite, with no washer dryer hookups there in Wiley, than compared to this one. So
Yeah, and I think that at the end of the day, the answer could be who the heck knows, which is going to be doing better. So you diversify, but the term on the loan is 10 years, right? So you can
right, so we can
right
write
on.
it out.
Yeah. Another question here: what is the debt conservation ratio for this property?
The debt coverage ratio.
You said conservation. I was kind of hoping that.
Coverage was usually we see
Oh,
a debt.
debt coverage ratio. Okay,
Yeah,
I
usually
thought
that's what
that
we
might be an East Coast thing. So
see.
words are different.
um, so Fannie Mae, has us go on their second loan. We've got to be, or no, that's their second loan. Sorry, on their loan, 1.25 on this deal, and I think we're at like 1.3 on their on the total package.
Yeah, I think the first year projections we're looking at like 1.6 or something like that. That's a risk
Right.
coverage ratio.
Yeah, and we're because we're partly owning the management company helps, right? That helps speed everything up, and we know some better practices to get those expenses down. I think faster. So that I think that's going to help us that service coverage ratio quickly.
Last two questions here. What are the investor requirements to invest in this deal? You must be accredited or sophisticated investor. Um, Minimum, maximum, it will be $50,000 minimums, and maximum will be $800,000. And we will be calling you first to what we'll do with the deal in the future, if that's you. More voting rights. And that's what typically happens, right? Like that's what's nice about being like a bigger shareholder, is that you kind of unofficially get called and say, "Hey, man, what do you think about what we're doing here?" Since
Right.
you are the bigger fish. But I think that's the end of the presentation. Oh, we got a few more here. Can I invest my money in from IRA? Yes, we're taking IRA and solo 401k funds. Time horizon, we're set to close December 2018. I would say get your money in well before Christmas, if not sooner. We're gonna PPMs. If you guys go and fill out the online form that I have, we'll send you the PPM out in the next day or two. We've already got most of this deal filled up, so please do it quickly.
Yeah, I'd say faster than that because we're supposed to close by the contract December 6th. But we all kind of know that's not going to happen because Fannie Mae. So I'm thinking it's going to be December 14th or maybe the 17th. That's how we
Uh,
actually close.
is a property in a floodplain? No. GP investing any money?
Yes.
We did like the 10% or This is a
No,
big deal.
so like a lot of folks, some of my fellow colleagues, I won't call them out by name, but they take an asset management fee, and then they don't put any money above that asset management fee or that acquisition fee. Sorry, into their own deal, um, which to me is maybe similar to not putting money in your own on your own offering. We've got some of our money that we're investing. My wife and I are investing in this deal. And so is Lane and other folks as well. So
Uh, Again, the tax benefits. This is something I'm kind of closely looking my on. I got a couple deals here that are trying to close, but for the end of the year. Again, that we'll be doing because it is such a big deal. And um, I don't know. Is it because it's a new build? Is the cost segregation study even more effective for the bonus depreciation because it's brand new stuff, or
yeah,
does
it
it
should
not
be. I
really
mean, they're
matter?
going to be so we've got that cooking on. We closed another deal in El Paso. We've got that going, and a deal in Oklahoma. We're doing the cost segregation as well. So it'll help out passives that have kind of pretty big passive gains coming in 2018 and 2019.
Right. So we just need to close on the property in 2018 so we can get you guys. We're not going to make you any money in 2018, that's for sure, but we'll show a loss for you.
Right.
Um, is there any other questions you guys have? Please type them into the window. This is kind of your last chance. Question regarding debt covenants, how would the property value have to decline in a downward turn before the need for a capital call? Good question.
So typically on the deals we buy, we need the occupancy to be around 75% to break even. That's typically what we see on our properties. This one might be more like 77 or 78 just because of the higher leverage, but it'll be roughly that.
Yeah, and typically Class A, the hum rate for full occupancy is not really at 92 to 95. It's more like 95 to 97%.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
If there's anything else, let me know. But yeah, we'll kind of close this out here. I always like to do sort of like a SWOT analysis on every deal that I go into, and this is kind of what I put together personally. I think the biggest risk on this deal is, I think it's underwritten the right way. It's the Greenville market. So what's the mitigation strategies? Just underwrite for small growth and conserve occupancy. So we got the 8% economic vacancy, that for our A class unit, and the 2% rent increases. And I'm thinking that DFW growth will keep going to that north.
Yeah.
The second biggest issue we talked about was in Texas, you got all this land slumping all over the place. So the due diligence has already been completed in that, and just got to monitor it. Why am I personally investing? Yield play, new build in the path of DFW growth. Just another deal that's cash flowing today, and it's got a good buffer in there. Number two here, it's a long-term asset, brand new property, and like I said before, I don't know what's better going into a recession, your Class C or your Class A underwritten property like this, but I'm just gonna start picking up both. And sort of what makes this deal really unique, uh, which is like 13 acres of developable land that's sort of like a 40% ROA from the start. That's not included in these numbers. That's kind of the back pocket ace up the sleeve there.
Right.
So call to action here, guys, is review the deal deck. I'll send this out shortly after. Shoot me an email, give me a text, call if you got any questions, and confirm on the soft reserve form in the email, and await the PPM documents for review, which will probably come in the next day or two right after. Give us some time to kind of sort through all the entries. Again, minimum is 50,000, and we are accepting non-accredited with pre-existing relationships, and accredited investors are always accepted. And if you guys are on the fence, let's talk through this a little bit. It may not be the right deal for you, maybe exactly the right deal for, but like as always, I always kind of know each of you guys sort of individually. So we'll get on a call and kind of see if it's good for you guys. I think that's it. Any parting words, Kenny?
No, guys, I appreciate you guys taking the time today to hop on a webinar on a Saturday. We're in the middle of Thanksgiving, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right, thank you.